Welcome to the podcast of Rotary Magazine, the official publication of Rotary International. I'm Steve Edwards. Community-based membership organizations have long been an important part of our social fabric. But in an era when obligations and demands on working professionals are becoming so overwhelming, and new advances in technology are distracting many people from real-world relationships, what prompts someone to join community-based membership organizations? Well, in the 1980s, a concept called the helper's high began to gain traction in psychology spaces. It's the idea that when you serve others, you become happier and healthier yourself. Sure, the idea of being neurologically rewarded sounds clinical, but it also suggests that it's in our human nature to help those around us. Community organizations like Rotary provide the perfect opportunity to help others and to better ourselves. They connect us with a diverse group of professional and business leaders who share our drive to give back, to help those in need, and to make a real difference in our communities. Through community projects, members build a sense of belonging and common responsibility. Rotary offers opportunities for networking and for members to enhance their own leadership and management skills. It also provides opportunities to give and receive mentorship from other members while building friendships with like-minded people around the world. In this episode of the Rotary Podcast, 3 veteran Rotary members with different backgrounds share their perspectives on why they joined Rotary. We'll talk with Alida Williams, the first African-American president of Rotary One in Chicago, which is the cradle of the global Rotary movement. Alida will share with us her journey through Rotary and how the legendary club has adapted to the changing times. We'll also hear from Louis De Real, a young Rotary member in the Philippines. The first Rotary Club in Asia was chartered in the Philippines in 1919, and today Rotary is rapidly expanding throughout the region. But we begin with United States Representative French Hill, who serves Arkansas's 2nd Congressional District. Prior to his congressional service, Congressman Hill was founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Delta Trust and Banking Corporation. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, Hill led the design of U.S. technical assistance to the emerging economies of Eastern and Central Europe in the areas of banking and securities. A community leader, he is also past president of the Rotary Club of Little Rock, of which he's been a member since 1993. More importantly, he comes from a family of Rotarians, a tradition he's passed down to his own children. Being a third-generation Rotarian, what exposure did you have to Rotary growing up as the son and grandson of 2 Rotarians? Did you have any concept of Rotary as you were growing up?
Well, I was really lucky because I got to grow up with a wonderful pair of parents who my dad was in business with his dad. And so that was a neat experience to see them in business together, and had an additional benefit in that I was a next door neighbor to my grandparents. And so there's really nothing better than padding around into your grandparents' house first thing on a Saturday morning when you live next door and see what's going on and talk them into a bowl of Cheerios. But in my grandfather's office in his home, he had a big plaque on his wall that was a wooden plaque with the Rotary wheel on it in appreciation of his Rotary service back in the 1940s and 1950s. And it's that wheel always sort of stuck with me among all the memorabilia on his wall.
What did Rotary mean to your grandfather and your father in terms of their connection to community in Little Rock and their own work together in business?
Well, it was absolutely the core civic thing that tied them to our very small business community back in those post-World War II days. My grandfather was the secretary-treasurer of the club and was very active all during those years. And my dad was active in the 1950s and 1960s. And I think they used it for traditional Rotary reasons, which was to network with their fellow business members and build goodwill and better friendships. And one story just comes to mind where it continues to this day, really literally 75 years later. My grandfather was instrumental with a fellow club member named Gus Ottenheimer in forming a youth program. And they were inspired by the work of the United Nations and the work of Senator Bill Fulbright in Arkansas, who, of course, created the Fulbright Scholarship, about inviting 2 young kids from another country to spend a month in Little Rock, all expenses paid, and then have a trip to the U.S. Capitol to take a tour of Washington, D.C. The first kids who came that first year back in 1948 were from Germany, and the second year were from Italy. And this is where the story with the Hills gets interesting, because my grandfather and my grandmother hosted those two boys, and they became literally lifelong friends with my grandparents, then my parents, and then their kids were friends of mine during my college years. And so while my kids have not met their great-grandchildren, I'm sure that'll happen sometime, and you'll have 4 generations of friendship from a Rotary program in 1948, and I think that's really what Rotary is all about.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And that project, the Oppenheimer Project, is still going on, as I understand it, celebrating its 75th anniversary this year, really dedicated to fostering international peace and understanding, as you referenced. What impact has that program had on the Little Rock Rotary Club and on the sense of Rotarians' connection to the larger mission of Rotary International, you think?
Well, I think it brings that larger mission of Rotary alive for all of our club members here. It's one of the most collaborative things that we do. Every member participates in hosting the 2 young people, taking them out on trips, taking them to see a Razorback football game, or take them water skiing at somebody's lake house, or visiting businesses, and trying to cater to their own particular interests, whatever their professional interests are while they're in college. And so it is one of the most participatory things we have in the clubs, and they look back at the impact they made, not only of those individual students who we hear from with Christmas cards and regular communication, but also on touching the lives of young people here in our club that maybe don't have an international experience. They've not met somebody from another country, or at least spent extended time with them.
This year is also the 30th year since you became a Rotarian. I understand you joined back in 1993, following the time you spent working in Washington in the White House with then President George Herbert Walker Bush. What inspired you to follow in the footsteps of your father and grandfather and become a member of Rotary as you returned to Little Rock?
Well, I think my parents were flabbergasted that after 18 years, I chose to move back to my hometown. So we were happy to come home, and the first thing I wanted to do was join Rotary. I was ably sponsored and helped in Rotary by a guy named Bob Lanford, whose dad had been my grandfather's partner, and both of them had been Rotary officers. Bob Lanford, my sponsor for Rotary Club of Little Rock, had that family connection with me and knew of my legacy in Rotary and my passion for civic work, so he made it happen.
You know, Congressman, we've been talking a bit about the civic impact and about the impact that Rotary and Rotarians can have in their communities, locally, internationally, the service work in terms of humanitarian context, et cetera. But what about for you personally and for individual Rotarians? What's the benefit at the individual level?
Well, obviously, Paul Harris was a lonely guy in Chicago and wanted to build out a network that would truly benefit him personally. But for members joining Rotary, this is a chance to get out of themselves, to get away from maybe their daily profession and grow. And so what I've enjoyed about Rotary is the ability to hear other people's stories and grow and have a different perspective on different topics. And our club's done an outstanding job of that. So first of all, I think it's personal growth. Secondly, as you do work hard to bring younger members into our clubs, they have a new broad leadership opportunity across, a wide cross-section of their community. And when I joined Rotary, it was really limited to male and female business leaders, business owners, senior executives of established businesses, which was great and fully met every precept of Rotary. I guess you would say working with your peers, which is important because that offers new opportunities for community board service on a nonprofit or work on a project outside Rotary because you met and trusted somebody that you met in Rotary. So that networking component is important, and it gives the opportunity for a member to do a good job on some sort of a Rotary project that leads to a new assignment at work or a new assignment or invitation to spend time on another charitable or civic interest. So in my view, Rotary is a great way to get out of the look at life just through the lens of your family and your business and come and get a much broader perspective.
That's terrific. As you moved through your career in business and ultimately decided to return to public service yourself, running for office, running for the United States Congress, what role did your both experience in Rotary and the relationships you established through Rotary play in both shaping your interest in running for office and your ability to effectively mount a campaign, if at all?
Well, I think it did because Rotary is an important leadership experience, and it's a broader coalition of people engaged in civic and local community affairs. They come together, they spend their own money to join Rotary, they spend their own time to come to Rotary meetings, they spend their own time to volunteer for Rotary activities. And what was powerful for me about Rotary in Little Rock is people saw me outside my work environment. In other words, they saw me as a Rotary volunteer and not a stereotypical commercial banker. When I was the club president in 2005 and 2006, and that's almost a decade before I ran for Congress. This was at the time of the horrible landfall of Katrina in Louisiana. And so our club wanted to be very, very active in Katrina relief, and I assigned a former district governor, Sam Chafin, to be my Katrina czar. And he set up a magnificent effort where we went to a very poor community on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain, which was unincorporated in Lacombe, Louisiana, and in partnership with the Rotary Club of Covington, Louisiana, helped every one of those families get out of their home, rebuild or remodel their home, or in some cases, construct an entirely new home. And the work was so compelling. I mean, it dominated my Rotary President's year and the next Rotary President's year. And we were awarded from President Bush and President Clinton $750,000 toward that Rotary support, in addition to the Rotary Foundation support. And again, I think that was an example. I'm just using it as an example where it showed the passion that individual Rotarians, including myself, have for community service. And I think that really helped me in preparation for a campaign, and also how to communicate about how helping others is a critical part of public service.
You know, it's such a powerful example, and it brings to mind another trend that the Harvard scholar Robert Putnam has written about in his classic book, Bowling Alone, that generationally speaking, younger generations of Americans in more recent decades have been less inclined to be active in civic organizations, and uses the metaphor of a bowling league as an example of how that kind of civic fabric has not been woven together as strongly in recent decades. What would you say to those who suggest that maybe younger folks who might not be interested in Rotary or think it's not relevant to them? How would you connect the dots?
Well, I think of many, many civic organizations with deep 100-year-plus legacies in the U.S. who are mission-oriented, who we all have tremendous respect for. They have not necessarily been effective at identifying future needs and recruiting new members and broadening their membership appeal. And boy, do I think Rotary has led the way on that, which means it's an amazing grassroots organization. And you can go back to the late 1980s and the admission of women to Rotary, the flexibility about meeting times, and then to the late 1990s, the flexibility on the classification issue. And so I love what Rotary's done about making the club appealing to young people. Both of my kids were active in Rotary in high school. Look, civic service and volunteerism is inside every American. It is absolutely one of these unique American traits. Sure, we see it around the world because we're Rotary. We see that spirit in every country in which Rotary is located. So I do think it's in our DNA as Americans to be volunteers and civic-minded. But we have to get out and hustle to remind people of that and make sure that we're using muscle memory with the new generation. And you do that by challenging the new generation. Rotary has done an outstanding job of that, and we can do more.
As a member of Congress, you have an extraordinarily busy schedule, lots of demands on your time. You're still involved, still an active current member of the Rotary Club of Little Rock. Why do you stay involved?
Boy, it's such a connection. You know, when you have, and this affects, I get on that plane every week to leave Little Rock and go to Washington, and we really crave the connectivity and stability of certain anchor foundational tenets in our lives. And for me, Rotary is one of those things. And I'm also pleased that we still, long after the pandemic has left Little Rock, Arkansas, still offer our meeting on Zoom for members who aren't able to be there. And I think that's a nice touch, although we're back up to a full room for Rotary attendance. So for me, it's just that great connection with my fellow citizens here in Central Arkansas that keep me grounded in the work that I'm doing on their behalf in Washington.
Well, Congressman Hill, we really appreciate your time, your leadership, your service, and your involvement in Rotary, broadly speaking, and certainly in the Rotary Club of Little Rock. Congressman French Hill represents Arkansas's 2nd Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives. He's a third-generation Rotary member and past president and current member of the Rotary Club of Little Rock. Congressman Hill, thanks again. A pleasure talking with you.
Steve, treat to be with you. Thanks.
Our next guest takes us back to where Rotary began, at the Rotary Club of Chicago. Since the club known as Rotary One was formed in 1905, hundreds have served as the club president, including Rotary founder Paul Harris himself. In July 2023, Alita Williams was sworn in as the 120th president of Rotary One and its first Black president. Let me talk about your own journey to Rotary, if you don't mind. What was it that ultimately led you to first participate?
I'm actually a chef by trade. I own a catering company, and I had literally never heard of Rotary in my life. And I was cooking dinner for a Rotarian, and she was calling people and was just like, hey, don't forget about the Rotary meeting that's coming up. And she was just so excited. And I was like, what is this Rotary thing that you're talking about? So she tells me all about Rotary and this is great business people and networking and all of these things. And I had just started my business and was trying to get out there to meet more people. So I was like, I'll go to this meeting and see what it's about. And I have to be honest, when I walked in, I was like, yeah, this doesn't look like where I should be. I didn't see myself represented in the people that I saw in the room. I didn't feel comfortable being in the room. I said, everyone needs a caterer at some point. So I stayed for business. I stayed for that opportunity to network with business owners, with people that eventually needed. And then as I stayed longer and longer, I found out about our Job One program and where we gave high school juniors and seniors this opportunity to work with wonderful companies in the city of Chicago and be mentored. And that's where my passion is giving opportunity and access to young people and people of color who may not have that access. Because there's so many things that Rotary has for youth that I never knew about, that my community could have really enjoyed and been a part of. And that's what kept me here, to continue to bring those opportunities and shed light on those opportunities in my community and the many things that are able and offered. As I counted, I've actually been a Rotarian now 10 years. So that was 10 and a half years ago when I had that wonderful conversation and showed up at a Rotary meeting here at the Union League Club.
That's beautiful. Alita, I'm curious, just in your own instance, what has your involvement in Rotary meant for you personally and perhaps professionally?
When I really think about Rotary and how it has affected me, I have to go back to the pandemic. As a caterer, obviously, my business relies on large groups of people coming together, and all of that ended. And I tell people every day that my Rotary Club helped save my business. My Rotary Club wanted to do something in our community, and to do that, we decided to feed the doctors in the medical district downtown. And that kept my business from going under. And then even as we stopped doing the medical district, we pivoted and fed senior citizens. And those seniors were so grateful because they said, no one comes to see me anymore. And I know you're coming every Friday and I look forward to it. And to be able to touch anyone's life like that and to give them hope just means the world to me. And Rotary helped me do that.
Alita, I'd love to talk more about that. When we think of Rotary International and all of the different corners of the globe that have Rotary clubs, it's easy to say that Rotary International is a very diverse organization at that scale, at that global scale. Tell me more about how it's doing here in the United States and the journey that Rotary's on as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, as you see it.
I remember the first time I told somebody I was a member of Rotary. And the first thing they said to me was, how are you a member of that old white man's club? It's an exclusive group and you shouldn't be there because the perception is it's only CEOs, it's only business leaders, it's only government officials and things of that nature. And I think we've done a very good job of trying to show that it's more than that it can be the teachers in your school, the principals, the police officers in the community, and being a part of the community that helps make things better. And I think once we understand and dive deeper to realize that different people bring different experiences and different ways to look at things, that it can only help you and help your organization grow and it help keep your organization vibrant, because we can't stay stagnant. We have to show that we are open to anybody and everybody to be a part of our organization.
So, Alita, how would you characterize both the size and makeup of Rotary One today?
Well, today I would say Rotary One is very diverse. We have easily, I believe, 40% women in our club. Myself and the next two presidents are all women. We are 20 to 30% people of color and very diverse when it comes to religion and definitely different types of careers. That's what our club looks like right now.
What is it ultimately that's made the difference for you that bridges that initial impression from now being president of Rotary One, the first Rotary club and all of Rotary International? What's made the difference? Let's bridge that gap.
The members have been so supportive and just so welcoming. As with anything, you have your ups and downs and you have some difficulties, but just being with the members and seeing their support and just feeling a part of that Rotary family to an extent has just made that difference and just made me want to keep being here.
That's an amazing story, Alita, not only of service to community, but also of service to each other in a difficult time. And tell me more about those opportunities, the things that you think could be especially helpful in terms of on-ramps for discovery, learning, growth, and opportunity for communities of color and your community in particular.
I think RILA is the first thing that comes to mind, our Rotary Youth Leadership Organization. I think RILA is amazing to bring those youth together that are from different communities and different parts of your region and just talk about how you're a leader in your community and how you can continue to do that. So the youth exchange program, I would have loved to have been able to spend 6 months in another country and go to high school and learn that culture, because those are things that bring you outside of your community. And so many people, and so many, especially people of color, don't tend to go within 10 to 20 blocks outside of their neighborhood. And when all you see is what's around you and you only see what people show you on TV. But to get that opportunity to go to another country, even if it's just for the summer or 6 weeks over spring break, to get that opportunity to be in a different culture and to be exposed to different things and to know that there is a whole world out there that's there for you and it changes lives. And Rotary really does change people's lives in many different ways.
Alita, you mentioned the Job One program and its impact on youth. How does it actually work? What are the components of it?
So Job One is in its 20th year this year. And how it works is we go out to all the high schools in the city of Chicago and we tell them we have this great internship program, please come apply. And, we take in all these applications and then we go out to employers and say, we have all these great kids who want to learn about careers and about being in business. And we pick our students and then we put them through job training. So we have 3 weekends that they need to come in and we talk about what it's like to work in a business office. So when they come in, we do a big job fair and I tell them this is the only job fair in the world that you will definitely walk away with a job. And And so many of our students stay with those employers. They go off to college, they come back in the summer, go work for those employers again. We have one student that went through Job One as a high schooler, went to UIC, and then graduated from UIC and started working at UIC and came back and was interviewing Job One students and said, I remember what this was like. But it was such a great program. And to see that legacy move forward is everything.
Last question for you, Alita. You have just officially started your term as president of Rotary One, so early weeks yet. What do you hope that you'll be able to accomplish with your fellow Rotarians as president of Rotary One?
Just a better respect and a better understanding of all the wonderful differences that are in our club. What I hope to do in my year, because we have so much diversity in my club. We have Jewish members, we have Indian members, we have Hindu, African American, to take those differences and celebrate them in a way in which all of our club can get to know each other better and to respect each other more and to understand how we look at things and how all of us working together can just really grow our club and grow Rotary is what I hope to do in my year.
Well, Alita, we wish you all the best in that work and in your tenure as president of Rotary One. Alita Williams is the newly elected president of Rotary One in Chicago, the first chartered Rotary Club. She's the 120th president in that club's history and the first Black president. Alita, thank you so much and all the best to you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your time.
While membership organizations like Rotary celebrate their long histories, they also have an eye on the future, specifically on the future community leaders that help maintain their vigor and relevancy. That's where younger members like our next guest come in. Louis De Real called in from the Philippines, where he's a member of the Rotary Club of San Francisco Del Monte and the Rotaract Club of San Francisco Del Monte Malaya Achievers. Louis' Rotary journey began in 2010 when he joined Rotaract, which features clubs for young adults. At the time, Louis was a shy student. He didn't like public speaking and lacked confidence in social settings. But over the years, he worked his way up and has held various public roles in Rotary. I wonder, Louis, if you might tell me a little bit about your day job. Tell me about the work you do as Executive Director of Security Bank Foundation.
So I actually manage the day-to-day operations of the foundation. So it is a corporate foundation of a major bank here in the Philippines. And our advocacy and programs are mostly in education. So we help public schools by donating classrooms, repairing classrooms, and even providing trainings for teachers and its school leaders.
What was it about Rotary specifically that piqued your interest?
I think the competitive advantage of Rotary and Rotaract is that opportunity to work with different generations, learning from people who are already experts or experienced in various professions, various businesses, or even just achieve something in life. I kind of get inspiration from these kinds of people who are members of Rotary.
What experiences stand out most for you during your time in Rotaract?
Well, number one is the opportunity to have a fellowship parties after service projects and after events that we organize. We also love to travel. I think that's a character of the young generation. We are very much adventurous. So we also find joy when we do projects in far-flung communities because that also gives us opportunities to travel, meet new people, understand new cultures.
Tell me more about some of the travel and service work you've done as part of the Rotaract Club of San Francisco Del Monte.
We've had a project in a certain province in the Philippines where we had to partner with multiple Rotaract clubs coming also from different cities and provinces in the Philippines. And then going to that community, we have to hike for about 2 to 3 hours to bring, let's say, school supplies and educational materials to a far-flung school who has limited support from the government. So, of course, the hardship that you had to experience going to that school, understanding the plight and condition of the people in that community.
I'm curious to know if there's a particularly personal memory, whether it's through a service project or a fun engagement experience, or even just a personal connection with a fellow Rotarian that stands out to you. If you think back fondly on your times, what would that be?
Well, what I can immediately think of is every time I do a valedictory or a year-ender speech, I always cry, reminiscing and recollecting the success and accomplishments, the people that we've helped, the young leaders that we were able to build throughout the journey. So it kind of reflects that even if you're so busy doing various stuff in the organization, it also changes you along the process. Like me, now I'm speaking in this podcast, but before I used to be a shy student. I don't have confidence speaking to people, especially if there are a lot of people listening or watching.
And you attribute your growth in that area to your experience in Rotary?
Definitely. Most especially from my moments of working together with Rotarians, because throughout my 13-year journey in Rotaract and now as a Rotarian, it will always be marked by those joint projects, collaboration efforts, or conversations in planning events or initiatives with Rotarians. I really find satisfaction and it boosts my morale as Rotaractor if I know that there are Rotarians who are acknowledging our efforts as young leaders. So I think that's one of the key why I've taken so much leadership roles, because along the way, there's definitely a Rotarian who encouraged me, who worked closely with me to do things that we didn't imagine we can actually do through partnerships.
What's your personal pitch when you talk to someone? What do you say? Because you're on the membership committee, you've been successful in getting many of your peers and younger people to participate. What's the secret?
Even if there are a lot of guidelines or a lot of avenues of service that we're expected to do in this organization, I always say that Rotary and Rotaract is quite flexible. We have different avenues of service, but if you think of it, whatever you want to do, whether it's for your personal improvement, for the improvement of the communities in your area, or if you just want to take leadership roles, or just develop your skills in public speaking, Rotary and Rotaract is good for you because we have structured programs for that. And we have people inside the organization who will guide you along the way to develop what you want to happen in your life or in your communities.
For you personally, what have you loved most? Where do your passions point?
I really find satisfaction mentoring young people because I've already taken up various leadership roles, especially in Rotaract. So I kind of have that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment if ever I see someone who started as a relatively shy new member of Rotaract, but now he's climbing up the ladder and eventually becoming a Rotary in the future.
When you think about some of the service work that's taking place across the Philippines, what comes to mind? What are some of the examples of where Rotarians are having real impact in the communities in which they live and work?
If we go back to history, the project of ending polio by Rotary International actually started here in our country. So I think it's a good messaging, especially to the young people who is now not experiencing the polio virus, is that you are safe thanks to the efforts of Rotary International to make sure that polio is eradicated, especially here in the Philippines.
Louis, I'm curious, just given your involvement in Rotary and your involvement in many different communities outside of it, how would you characterize the perception of Rotary in the Philippines? What's its image? What's its reputation?
Sure. I think Rotary in the Philippines is perceived to be an organization for rich people, successful people, and businesses and in various professions. We want to communicate that Rotary is an organization open for people from all backgrounds. As long as you have the passion to take action, to solve certain problems in your communities, then you can be part of Rotary. There's really a long way ahead in terms of convincing the public that it's really an organization that is diverse and open also for everyone.
What do you think needs to happen? What would help improve things?
Well, I think we have to feature, number one, members who are really doing so much work in terms of helping communities, our young leaders who are part of Rotaract. the good things that we do to improve the situation in our communities rather than communicating our traditions that are our prestigious members and the like.
Louis De Real is a Rotarian from the Philippines. He's a member of the Rotary Club of San Francisco del Monte and the Rotaract Club of San Francisco del Monte Malaya Achievers. Louis, thanks so much for your work, your leadership, and for this conversation. It's been really great talking to you.
Thank you also.
And thanks to all of our guests for sitting down with us to discuss helping others and what Rotary membership means to them. This episode of the Rotary Magazine podcast was produced by Kristen Morris and edited by J.P. Swenson and Wen Wong, with production by Mike Novak. I'm Steve Edwards. Thanks for listening.